The Atlantic in winter is not blue. It's gray, heavy, and infinite. The sea doesn't rage, it waits. For the men who found themselves adrift after a torpedo strike, the cold wasn't just weather, it was a predator. Water that looked calm could steal the heat from a human body faster than fire ever could. Hours felt like years in that silence, where breath turned to frost and hope into disbelief. They had no engines, no signal lights, no comfort but the stars, and even those seemed too far to care. Fire, the oldest friend of mankind, was useless here. One spark could light a raft and summon death in the same moment. And yet, somewhere amid the endless gray, someone found a way to cheat that equation. A small device that burned without flame, that offered warmth without betrayal. Invisible fire, a secret heat that defied both nature and war. It didn't roar or glow. It simply lived, and in doing so, it let others live too. Fire is loyalty and treachery bound together. In a lifeboat adrift on the Atlantic, it was both salvation and signal, a glow that could thaw frozen fingers, or draw death from miles away. During the long winters of the war, convoys scattered by torpedoes left survivors clinging to rafts no larger than a room, surrounded by an ocean colder than steel. Their first instinct was always the same: light something, anything. But the moment flame rose, it betrayed them. Smoke could be spotted by aircraft. A flicker in the dark could be seen from a periscope. And even if no enemy saw it, the wind and spray would snuff it out before it gave a breath of warmth. So the men learned restraint, holding matches between numb fingers, knowing that the light they craved could cost them their lives. In that terrible balance, warmth became a luxury and cold became a test of will. Every man understood the rule of the sea: survive, but don't be seen. It was a paradox as merciless as the ocean itself. To live, they needed fire. To remain alive, they had to pretend they'd forgotten it. Necessity is the mother of all quiet revolutions, and war is her cruelest midwife. In the early 1940s, as ships burned and froze in equal measure, a small team of engineers and survival experts faced a problem no weapon could solve: how to create heat that didn't reveal itself. They weren't soldiers, but thinkers in labs that smelled of fuel and metal, working with the desperation of men who knew every delay meant another life lost to cold. Out of their experiments came something remarkable: a metal cylinder no bigger than a tin of rations, filled with compounds that reacted silently with air. No flame, no smoke, just warmth. It didn't burn in the way we understood fire. It breathed. A slow, controlled oxidation, transforming chemistry into life. Held close, it radiated gentle heat, invisible to the naked eye, undetectable from the sky. Tested in icy tanks, it glowed faintly within, its warmth steady and patient, like the pulse of something alive. Sailors called it a miracle in a box, though it was really a triumph of humility, an invention that refused to boast. In an age of roaring engines and blinding explosions, this stove whispered a different kind of power: survival through silence. They called them the forgotten sailors, men plucked from the wreckage of ships, clinging to life on rafts tossed between gray horizons. Some drifted for days, others for weeks, their bodies stiffening, their minds fraying in the endless cold. But for few, survival came from something almost invisible. The flameless stove was passed from hand to hand like a relic, its surface barely warm to the touch, yet it meant the difference between breath and silence. Huddled beneath tarps, they felt its slow heat seep into their palms, into their bones. No light, no sound, just that faint reassurance, the sense that something, however small, still worked in their favor. Diaries recovered from lifeboats told of a tin that breathed warmth, of nights when frost froze. Beards and ropes, but not hearts. Even those who didn't survive left traces of gratitude written in cramped, trembling letters. They marveled that warmth could exist without fire, that life could continue without light. It wasn't just an invention. It was mercy disguised as metal. On the vast, indifferent Atlantic, that quiet glow was a rebellion, proof that even in a world built for destruction, humanity could still create something meant purely to preserve. There's a strange poetry in a fire that chooses not to be seen. The lifeboat stove wasn't just an invention. It was a philosophy, forged in desperation and humility. It reminded the world that power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it hides. Sometimes it waits. The men who warmed their hands over that invisible heat discovered something beyond survival. They learned that strength can exist quietly, without spectacle. The stove's silence was its genius. It asked for no attention, no reward, only the chance to keep life breathing a little longer. In a way, it mirrored the people it saved, unseen, uncelebrated, enduring through the long night. Every flicker we don't see, every warmth we take for granted, carries that same lesson, that the greatest forces in nature, and in us, often move without noise or recognition. The invisible heat became a symbol of human restraint, of intelligence guided by empathy. It was fire reborn as wisdom, and long after the war ended, its quiet message endured. Sometimes the only way to survive the storm is to stop trying to outshine it. Inside the small metal body of the lifeboat stove, chemistry whispered where fire once roared. Instead of open flame, it relied on a slow, controlled reaction between oxidizing salts and a fuel source, often alcohol or a solid fuel like hexamine. When ignited, the compounds didn't flare. They glowed, consuming oxygen at a crawl and releasing steady, radiant heat. To the human eye, it was darkness. To a freezing sailor, it was salvation. The heat came not from combustion, but from transformation. Matter rearranging itself. Quietly, trading light for longevity. There was no smoke to betray them. No flicker to draw attention. No sound but the faint crackle of air meeting metal. Its design was rugged and almost crude, but that simplicity was its brilliance. It didn't need pressure valves or vents. It just needed patience. The same principle now lives on in modern, flameless ration heaters and chemical hand warmers, descendants of that wartime miracle. They too create heat without fire, born from the same question that haunted every raft. How can we stay alive without being seen? In that question lies the heart of innovation, a belief that science and survival are not opposites, but partners, each teaching the other how to endure in silence. The lifeboat stove never became famous. It didn't end battles or change the tide of war. It simply kept people alive long enough to be found. And maybe that's its quiet legacy, a reminder that not every act of heroism roars. Some whisper. In the decades since, technology has moved on, but the principle it embodied still burns. Beneath our inventions, the marriage of necessity and compassion. Every device that saves lives in silence, from emergency heaters to hidden medical tech, carries the same heartbeat. The stove proved that survival is not always about conquest. It's about endurance, about designing with empathy for those at the edge of hope. Even now, the idea feels timeless, that warmth can exist without fire, that rescue can arrive without noise. The men who held that small metal box in their frozen hands likely never knew they were touching a philosophy, that invisibility, restraint, and patience can be as powerful as brilliance. The fire that wasn't there became something larger than invention. It became a lesson. When the world demands spectacle, choose subtlety. When survival seems impossible, remember The strongest heat may be the one no one else can see.